In the Impact segment tonight, chaos growing in Washington. Benghazi, the IRS, scrutinizing conservative groups. And now Attorney General Holder getting the call sheets of journalists, only he didn't get them. His assistant got them. Where do you hear this? It all adds up to political confusion, to say the least. Here now to try to sort it all out, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. Let's take the IRS first, Senator. Do you believe President Obama had anything directly to do with this?
Well, I don't know if the president did, Bill. We don't have evidence of that. I can tell you that what's become clearly apparent is a culture throughout the federal government, not just the IRS, but the Department of Justice, the State Department, et cetera. We've seen that now through 3 different incidents that basically use the government as an instrument of political activity, to target your political opponents, to make life difficult for people that are saying things that you don't like, to make life difficult for whistleblowers that are saying things about the State Department that you don't like. And I believe that all that comes from the top of any organization. So I think that's where the questions are increasingly leading. And it's embarrassing for the country. These are things you typically see in the third world, from unestablished republics and other places. You don't see that here. And I think that's what's really troubling about the recent string of events.
But it's one of two things. It's one of two things. Either it did come from the highest order of the IRS, and maybe somebody else told them to do it, or it was just zealots within the organization who decided to give the Tea Party a hard time. So it's one or the other. But right now, we don't know. We don't, and so we got to be careful about that. But let me just say this: I don't think that that kind of environment can flourish unless there's created a space or an environment where it's encouraged. So this is what we do know. We do know that donors to Mitt Romney and to Republican causes last year were targeted by Obama's campaign apparatus. You know, a gentleman in Idaho that was targeted, and his operations. We know others that have complained about it. So it's a general culture of the willingness to use the instruments of government to put your what you consider to be your political opponents in a bad position. And you've seen that now on issue after issue. You have a whistleblower last week saying that in Benghazi they felt threatened for their job. Yeah,
you have the AP. You have the AP now being targeted in a widespread effort to find information out about them.
And you have this incident with the IRS. AP thing. All right, now earlier today, as you probably know, Attorney General Holder gave a press conference. And then Carney, the White House spokesperson, also took questions about the AP. Here's the bottom line on the AP, Senator, and I want to get your reaction to it. Holder says that he recused himself because he himself might have been under investigation in these leaks. There were leaks about a CIA operation, we believe, in Yemen, had made its way into the Associated Press. The FBI is trying to find out who the leaker is. All right? Now, possibly could be the Attorney General of the United States. So Holder steps back and says, you know what? I'm not going to conduct an investigation that might even look at me. So, all right, that's what he did. So there he can get up and he goes, I don't know anything about it. I recused myself. It was my deputy who ordered the AP leaks. Number one, does that make sense to you?
It doesn't, because your deputy's still your deputy on everything else. And so certainly that person, you need to put someone independent there, not someone that works directly underneath you. But here's the second problem. If this was just targeted at the leaks, that's a valid law enforcement endeavor. The problem is this is such widespread. If you look at what the request was and how widespread it was, what it basically feels like, and you're seeing people in the press saying that. By the way, the curiosity in all this is how the press wanted to ignore Benghazi. They wanted to ignore all this other stuff. But when it touches them, now this thing is the next Watergate. But back to a point about the AP, the request was so widespread. It wasn't targeted. It was widespread. It was like a fishing expedition.
Well, they wanted to find out if anybody in the Associated Press is talking to anybody with access to classified information. That's what the FBI wanted to find out.
But the message is clear, and that is if we don't like what you're saying or what you're doing, we're going to use the apparatus of government to intimidate you and make you very uncomfortable. That's the story of the IRS. That's the story of the Justice Department via the AP
I agree with you
and
on
that's the story
IRS.
With Benghazi.
On the AP, I'm not so sure I buy into that. On the IRS, I do. All right,
well, what about Benghazi with the State Department?
I want to get there. All right. Now, Benghazi, that's the big story right now. And this is what the President, Carney, the Attorney General, all they say is we're investigating. We want to know the truth. We want to find out what happened. And then they never do. That's the oldest ruse in the world. So we're still undefined about who ordered Rice to go out and mislead the world, who screwed up security in Libya, who exactly screwed it up, Who said stand down to the military, don't send guys to Benghazi from Tripoli? Who did it?
Right.
They will not tell us, Senator. So here's my final question to you. Can you and your colleagues in the Senate make them?
Well, number one, that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of in all of this endeavor. The answer is you can put people under oath, and if they're willing to lie under oath, they're going to commit perjury.
But you guys haven't. It's been the House driving this train.
Well, we did a hearing, and Secretary Clinton came before us and answered questions, and obviously as more information comes out, what she said at that hearing will have to be compared with what the facts are that are being uncovered, and I hope that they match up, and if they don't, obviously there'll be consequences for that. But look, here's the bottom line. There are two separate issues to look at in Benghazi. One is were the talking points manipulated for political purposes, and number two, should we even have been there to begin with in Benghazi after a steady stream of intelligence reporting that told the State Department it is a very dangerous environment to have been there. They should have closed it down, and if they were going to keep Benghazi open, they should have had adequate security and an adequate plan to rescue those people. They did not.
All right. Are you confident we're going to get answers to any of these stories? Because right now that stone wall is pretty damn intense in Washington.
Well, we got to keep at it. That's our job.
All right, Senator, my job too. So you and I are simpatico here. All right.